what the summer was going to be like for us. And everybody went around and talked about those things. And so obviously we've kept in touch. We did a few shows along the way to just tap in. But all that time has went by, and now we're back here in studio.
And it's a few days after a birthday, so it's still celebrating. Where am I really? Not really, but it's still a month. So
happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah, happy birthday, bro.
Thank you. How you feeling? Like right now? Like what in your mind, where your head is at?
I feel 43.
LeBron Jordan debate. Well, how I'm going to start defining it.
Okay.
There's no secret about it all. Michael Jordan is my basketball GOAT.
Right.
Mine personally, right? For all the reasons that he should be.
The brotherhood is broken. For over a decade, they were the standard. LeBron James and Dwyane Wade, more than teammates, more than friends. A bond so iconic it defined an era of basketball. But now, Dwyane Wade has broken his silence, and what he said wasn't just a comment, it was a seismic shift. For the first time, Wade has publicly aligned himself not with his brother LeBron, but with the legends who have been criticizing him. Magic, Shaq, Barkley, and now Dwyane Wade. The ultimate insider has chosen a side, and his words have sent a shockwave through the NBA, proving this is no longer a war of generations, it's a war for the soul of the game itself. The setting was intimate, a long-form podcast known for deep personal conversations. Dwyane Wade sat across from the host, the mood light, reminiscing about Miami, championships, and brotherhood. The conversation naturally drifted to the current state of the league, the noise, the endless debates. The host, treading carefully, mentioned the old guard criticism of modern play and legacy. He expected Wade, as LeBron's closest ally in the sport, to offer a diplomatic defense, to downplay the conflict as media creation. He did not. Wade leaned back, his easy smile fading into a look of thoughtful, pained sincerity. "You know, I've listened," he began, his voice measured. "I've listened to Magic, to Shaq, to Chuck, and people want me to disagree with them because of my relationship with Bron. And that relationship is forever. That brother is my brother for life. But what I can't do is dismiss what they're saying." He paused, letting the weight of that admission hang in the air. "I came up in that world. I was drafted in 2003, but my mentors were from that era. They taught me what it meant to own a franchise, to own a city, not just with your play, but with your being, your accountability. There was no brand management. There was just the truth of the result." Wade wasn't yelling. He wasn't angry. He was eulogizing a lost ethos. And in doing so, he validated the core argument of Magic, Shaq, and Barkley, that a fundamental aspect of leadership, naked, unspun accountability, has changed. "Today," Wade continued, "it's different. And it's not better or worse, it's just different. But when those guys talk about ownership, they're talking about a feeling, a responsibility that was heavier because you couldn't hide from it. And I think maybe something got lost in translation when we moved into this new age. Maybe the pressure is the same, but the way we carry it, it's just different." With that, Dwyane Wade accomplished what no pundit ever could. He didn't attack LeBron. He framed the legend's criticism not as bitterness, but as a valid, experienced perspective on a fading cultural standard. By speaking from within the modern era, yet expressing nostalgia for the old one, he became the perfect bridge, and his alignment with the critics was a devastating form of confirmation. He wasn't choosing a side against his brother, he was choosing the side of the principle they were all raised on. And in this war, that distinction didn't matter. The headline was written: D. Wade sides with the legends.
In the debate, because I only know the strengths of my... So I'm not the one that's going to put a line in the sand, because I'm one of the only ones that can really have this conversation, because I played with one of them. I've actually, like, it's me and you.
Right, no, I get
it's mostly you, but it's me and you. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
So also, too...
It's going to be a lot of arguments about, oh, he's better because he scored more points. Oh, he's better because I like his game better. Oh, he's better because he won more rings. This conversation never goes anywhere. Let's use a hotel. All right, the hotel has 30 floors. Okay, we talking about an access key.
The reaction to Wade's comments wasn't just news. It was a psychological event within the NBA ecosystem. The Heatles era was remembered not just for titles, but for its unprecedented display of player friendship and power. Wade was the heart of that. For him to publicly validate the old guard's critique was akin to a wartime general's own family questioning the cause. Inside the league, the silence was deafening. Other stars from LeBron's generation, Carmelo Anthony, Chris Paul, stayed conspicuously quiet. They were trapped in a no-win scenario. Supporting Wade meant subtly agreeing with LeBron's critics. Supporting LeBron meant publicly disagreeing with a widely respected figure like Wade, who had spoken with nuance and respect. Their collective muteness was a roar of its own, signaling the uncomfortable, fracturing middle ground. The media landscape exploded. Pro-Wade segments framed his comments as courageous, a real one speaking hard truths even when it was difficult. They played clips of Wade and LeBron embracing, noting the profound gravity of Wade's words precisely because of that love. If Dwyane Wade sees it, maybe we all need to listen, became a common refrain. The old guard media felt vindicated, not by a critic, but by a beloved contemporary. LeBron's ecosystem, however, went into strategic overdrive. The response was not to attack Wade, that would be PR suicide, but to subtly reframe his meaning. Clips circulated of Wade praising LeBron's leadership from just months prior. Take the full context, the narrative urged. D-Wade is talking about the era, not the man. He's mourning a lost culture, not criticizing his brother. It was a deft, necessary maneuver to isolate Wade's sentiment from LeBron's person, but it required mental gymnastics the public wasn't entirely buying. The damage was in the association. The phrase, "even D-Wade agrees," became an unanswerable trump card in every social media debate. For LeBron James personally, this cut deeper than any Magic or Barkley takedown. This was his chosen brother, his championship confidant, the guy who knew his deepest competitive secrets. This wasn't an external attack, it felt like an internal audit of their shared philosophy. While their personal bond likely remained intact, the professional and philosophical schism was now a public record. The unity of their generation's front, the 2003 draft class, the Banana Boat crew, was shown to be permeable. If Wade, his closest ally, could publicly align with the criticism, then the criticism could no longer be dismissed as mere jealousy or bitterness from a bygone age. It had received a stamp of legitimacy from inside the tent. The war for legacy was no longer them versus us. It was now them and some of us versus him.
It's okay to be friends, go out to eat, hang out at each other's house, but the next day I'm trying to kick your butt, you trying to kick my butt because you're trying to win. You're a competitor. You wouldn't be as great as you was if you wasn't. So that notion that you can be friends with someone and compete against them, why not? Doesn't mean that you don't want to beat them because you're their friend.
Everyone knows that you have a well-documented friendship with LeBron James. When you're going through a decision like this, what did LeBron say to you?
Well, I mean, I got an opportunity because I was on vacation with Chris.
As a Bulls fan, as a lifelong Michael Jordan fan, you've said on the record many times, Michael Jordan's your GOAT. He's the best. Did you have to lie to LeBron about that when he was in Miami? You're like, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. You're still playing.
No, we didn't have those conversations.
You guys don't sit around?
We weren't talking about him being
Dwyane Wade's interview did more than make headlines. It actively began to rewrite the history of the very era he and LeBron had dominated. The narrative of the Miami Heat superteam, once a story of revolutionary player empowerment and joyous brotherhood, was now being retroactively examined through the lens Wade had provided. The Heatles were no longer just ahead of their time. They were now painted as the pivotal transition point, the moment the old culture began its shift. Analysts and former players from the 90s and early 2000s seized on Wade's words with a sense of "we told you so." They pointed to the 2011 NBA Finals when the Heat lost to Dallas as a prime example. See, the argument now went, that's what Wade is talking about. The pressure was so immense, so focused on them as a brand, that the basketball cracked. In the old days, the star got blamed, absorbed it, and came back. Now the story became about the narrative of failure, not the personal ownership of it. Wade's comments gave them permission to reframe the Heat's entire journey, their struggles and their triumphs, as evidence of the cultural change they'd been lamenting. This historical revisionism struck at the foundation of LeBron's legacy. His 2 championships in Miami were no longer just brilliant basketball achievements, they were becoming case studies in a new, more corporatized model of success. The focus subtly shifted from LeBron's otherworldly performance in those title runs to the structure around him, the friend as teammate dynamic, the coordinated free agency, the global branding of the team. Wade, by mourning the loss of the older, grittier standard of accountability, had unintentionally cast their shared success in a new, slightly colder light. Furthermore, Wade's stance empowered other voices from the periphery to speak up. Former teammates and coaches from across the league who may have harbored private frustrations about the modern star's influence now felt they had credible cover. If Dwyane Wade can say it, became a powerful preamble. Stories began to surface, always anonymously, about other superstars who operated with similar insulation, who had camps that managed their blame and curated their pressure. Wade wasn't just talking about LeBron. He had given language to a widespread, unspoken tension in locker rooms across the NBA. He became the reluctant figurehead for a quiet rebellion of basketball purists within the modern game itself. The most significant fracture, however, was in the story of player friendship. The iconic image of LeBron and Wade laughing on the bench, their bond seemingly transcending sport, was now layered with a complex public philosophical disagreement. It proved that even the strongest bonds could contain divergent views on the very essence of the game they played. The brotherhood wasn't broken, but it was no longer a unified front. And in a legacy war where perception is everything, a divided front is a weakened one. Wade hadn't just chosen a side in an argument, he had introduced a heartbreaking nuance into one of basketball's great myths, proving that even legends within the same story can read from different chapters.
Is because of the player empowerment of it all, right? That was decided by 3 guys, 3 players. It wasn't decided by teams. It wasn't a trade. Eventually it became trades to make it all work, but it wasn't decided through organization. And so I think that's why our big 3 was such an important part of the game of basketball. It's an important story in the game of basketball. And so what I loved about it is I thought we did a great job playing GM with each other and making sure we put the right chemistry of guys with CB.
So if you're LeBron James, just admit that you're trying to stat pad. You want to be better than Michael Jordan. You know you'll never be better than MJ, but you're trying your best, but it's not going to work. You'll never be able to go 6-0 in the finals. You have a terrible finals record. Yeah, you won a few championships.
In the wake of Wade's alignment with the old guard, LeBron James's profound silence transformed from a strategic power move into something that felt more solitary, more defensive. The echo chamber around him grew louder, with support from his dedicated inner circle and fan base, but the walls of that chamber also grew thicker, isolating him from the broader, shifting consensus of basketball tradition. His media allies doubled down, producing segments that meticulously broke down Wade's quotes, arguing they were being taken out of context, that he was a historian analyzing an era, not a critic judging a man. The narrative from LeBron's camp became one of misunderstood nuance, yet this very defense reinforced the central charge, that LeBron's world required complex, careful contextualization, while the old guard's criticism, now blessed by Wade, was presented as simple, raw truth. The need to explain Wade's words, rather than celebrate them, was a telltale sign of lost ground. Meanwhile, the basketball world continued its quiet pivot. Coaches and GMs, speaking anonymously on podcasts and to reporters, began to echo the sentiment Wade validated. They talked about the challenges of managing player ecosystems, about negotiating with representatives who held immense power over roster construction. Wade's comments gave them a respectable vocabulary to voice professional frustrations they'd previously swallowed. The phrase player ownership, once a Barkleyism, was now entering the front office lexicon as a real operational challenge. LeBron, as the archetype of the modern super-empowered superstar, was becoming the symbol of that challenge, whether he engaged with the debate or not. The most damaging effect was on the legacy conversation itself. Prior to Wade's intervention, the GOAT debate had LeBron supporters armed with data, points, assists, longevity, all-time scoring record. The old guard fought with intangibles, killer instinct, aura, fear. Wade's comments didn't provide a stat, but he gave the intangible argument a devastating credibility boost. He was a modern champion saying the intangibles mattered, perhaps even more now because they were fading. He made the old guard's emotional argument intellectually respectable. This shifted the battlefield onto terrain less favorable to LeBron's statistical armada. It was no longer just old men yelling about the past. It was a respected peer affirming that the past had a point about the soul of the game. LeBron found himself in a paradox. His silence maintained his kingly aura of being above the fray, but it also ceded the narrative battlefield. He wasn't fighting the story, he was allowing it to be written around him, with Dwyane Wade, of all people, helping to draft the most challenging chapters. The isolation was no longer just strategic, it began to feel emblematic. The king remained in his castle, the drawbridge up, while outside, a former ally was gently explaining to the villagers why the old ways of the kingdom had merit. The siege wasn't on his throne, but on the very philosophy of his reign.
On it. And it was serious. Like, I think a lot of guys didn't know or understand what it was going to be like, but it was serious down there in that bubble as far as the protocols and all that. So I just followed protocol, man. Right. Did what I had to do and let everybody else do their job at the end of the day.
People don't understand.
He has every stat, but they'll always talk about Jordan better than him. Why?
Jordan ain't better than Bron, though.
What did you say?
Hey, what did you say? Jordan ain't better than Bron.
Jordan's not the greatest still?
Dwyane Wade's pivot did more than impact LeBron, it sent a tremor through the entire identity of their basketball generation. The post-Jordan, pre-social media explosion cohort that included stars like Carmelo Anthony, Chris Paul, and Dwight Howard. This group had always projected a unified front of brotherhood, empowerment, and reshaping the league's business in their image. Wade's comments fractured that monolith, forcing an uncomfortable introspection. What did our era truly stand for? The silence from Melo, CP3, and others became a story in itself. Their refusal to publicly back either Wade's sentiment or LeBron's implied position was a dramatic departure from the brotherhood branding. It revealed a fault line. Were they the last generation of the old school, as Wade hinted, or the first generation of the new, as LeBron embodied? Their uncertainty in the face of this question stripped away a layer of their collective mythos. They were no longer the confident revolutionaries. They were men caught between two definitions of greatness, unsure of their own legacy's classification. This identity crisis trickled down to the fans who grew up with them. For fans in their late 20s and 30s, the 2003 draft class and the Heatles defined their basketball fandom. Wade's interview forced them to reevaluate their own nostalgia. Were they celebrating a golden age of player freedom and friendship, or were they, as the old guard now suggested, witnesses to the beginning of the end of true competitive grit? The debate invaded comment sections and group chats, not just about LeBron, but about that entire era's place in history. The consensus was unraveling. Media historians and cultural analysts began framing the early 2000s not as a clear-cut era, but as a transitional period. Wade was now framed as its eloquent eulogist, LeBron as its revolutionary product. This academic framing, while neutral, was damaging to LeBron's timeless aspirations. It positioned him not as a transcendent figure above history, but as the most potent symbol of a specific, contentious historical shift. He was becoming a chapter in a textbook about change, rather than the author of his own immutable legend. Most painfully, Wade's stance retroactively cast a shadow on the very memories that once felt pure. The iconic photo of Wade and LeBron sitting on the scorer's table in Miami, celebrating a title, was now viewed with a new melancholy. The joy was still real, but the interview added a subconscious caption. This was the peak, but also the turning point. Wade, by speaking up, had introduced the concept of loss into their shared victory. He made their shared pinnacle feel like a farewell to one way of basketball life, rather than just the birth of another. In doing so, he didn't just choose a side in a current debate, he recast the entire narrative of his generation, placing himself and his brothers, including LeBron, into a tragic, beautiful, and bitterly contested historical pivot. Their legacy was no longer solid, it was a subject for debate, and their own leader had started the conversation.
It's definitely, I'm gonna say this, it would definitely be an argument that would need to be had. If LeBron James end up the #1 scorer of all time, top 5 in assists and top 5 in rebounds, and have 4 or 5, 6 championships, you cannot do nothing but have the conversation of who's the greatest.
We have now arrived at a point of no return. The controversy is no longer a debate. It is a defining element of the legacy itself. Dwyane Wade's decision to speak did not end the war. It permanently changed the terrain. LeBron James's career, once a seemingly unstoppable march toward unanimous historical acclaim, must now be understood through a new and persistent lens, the respectful, poignant, and devastating opposition of his closest peer. The old guard, Magic, Shaq, Barkley, no longer sound like voices in the wilderness. With Wade's implicit backing, their criticism has been canonized as a valid, respected perspective on the evolution of the sport. They are no longer haters, they are custodians of a tradition, and they have found a powerful witness from the modern era to testify on its behalf. Their arguments about ownership, fear, and aura are now part of the permanent record, attached to LeBron's story not as a footnote, but as a central counter-narrative. Future historians won't just cite his stats and rings, they will also cite the respectful dissent of his contemporaries and predecessors, led by his own brother-in-arms. For LeBron, the path forward is singular. His silence can no longer be a temporary tactic, it must become his permanent state. To engage is to legitimize the fracture Wade revealed. His only remaining move is the totality of his work. Every assist, every fourth-quarter basket, every season of elite play is no longer just adding to his resume, it is a rebuttal. He must build his case not with words, but with a mountain of performance so high it simply blocks out the noise. He is fighting for a legacy of undeniable, monumental fact against a growing legacy of poignant, respected feeling. The saddest outcome is for the fans and the game itself. The joy of appreciation has been poisoned by the necessity of choice. You can no longer simply marvel at LeBron's brilliance. You are pressured to either fully embrace his modern empire or romanticize the past he is accused of leaving behind. The nuanced middle ground, where one can admire Jordan's ferocity and LeBron's sustained genius, where one can respect Wade's loyalty to an old standard while celebrating his friend's new path, has been swallowed by tribal warfare. The scandal has forced a binary choice upon a sport that thrives on beautiful complexity. So what did Dwyane Wade's voice truly decide? He didn't decide a winner. He decided that there would be no clean, unanimous victory. He proved that legacy is not a trophy you are handed, but a story that is constantly being written, edited, and contested by everyone in the room, even by those who love you most. He turned LeBron James's coronation into a compelling, eternal debate. The brotherhood wasn't broken. It simply performed its final, most painful act of loyalty. It told the hard truth. The king remains on his throne, but the throne now sits in a hall where the whispers of the past, given volume by a friend's honest heart, will forever echo. The final question is this: is a legacy still great if the people who helped you build it become the ones who most eloquently explain what it might have cost? Subscribe for every twist in this unprecedented story of friendship, legacy, and the high price of truth.